Sometimes I if his will because I simply don't always know what his will is. And so I need you to pray with me and think on this thought of a displaced if. And if it's in the wrong place. And God knows it's being directed to the wrong person. Now, if we're going to want God to move on your behalf, it's imperative that we have our ifs in the right place. Those of us who are familiar with this account, not only Mark records it, but Luke and Matthew records this scene. This case was a serious case. A case that was beyond the means of men in that day and time to do anything about it. This case was a case, are you praying with me, that involved the father and his son. And the report revolves around both father and son. I think I ought to tell you that in essence the father had no physical problems. The father didn't possess any problems of any nature that we could make mention of in terms of his physical and mental abilities. We can only deduce the fact that the father was in pretty good shape, both mentally and physically. But yet the father is bothered and greatly disturbed because of the condition of his son. And there are those of us in here this morning who can witness that nothing can bother a parent than the problems of their children. If you want to get to the heart of a father, a real father, and if you want to get to the heart of a real mother and wring it like a rag and let them find their children caught up in some serious trouble. This father, I'm glad to report, was a good father because he had general concern for the welfare of his son. The record is not short in telling us about the boy's condition. It was not in essence a physical disorder, but the reality was the boy was demon possessed. And say what you want, I still think some folk are running around the street today demon possessed. Somebody read the story that this boy was plagued by a demon. A demon lived within the boy, and the demon took charge of his actions. There were times when the boy would be irrational and he would fall on the ground and waddle in the dirt at the mouth and foaming at the mouth like a mad dog. It's right there, read the story. Much had to be said about the agony of this father to stand and watch his son go through violent convulsions. It had to be agony upon the father to see his son go into violent jerking and losing his equilibrium, falling to the ground and foaming at the mouth. That had to be a sight for a father to see. The record tells us that if that wasn't bad, the situation was even worse. Because every now and then the boy would be near the fire. And the demon presence within him would take charge of him and run him into the fire. Read it when you get home. I wish you could have been there to see the father running after him and sticking his arms and hands into the midst of the fire in order to get his son out of that fire. Yes, Lord. Oh, I'm sure many times the father burned himself in an effort to rescue his son. Yes, Lord. And it didn't stop there. There are those of us who know that the situation went even further, because when the boy would be near deep water, the same demonic presence would rage within the boy and throw him into the water in an effort to drown him. On numerous occasions, the father, again, can't you see him running after his son, trying to save his son from drowning in the water. I want to tell you, the father went through much with his son. Every pain that his son felt, no doubt the father felt. But somehow or another, somewhere, the father had heard about Jesus. I mean, news of Jesus was all over town. His deeds had reached the ears of this disturbed and distressed father. And after having exhausted all else, he decides that Jesus is the one I need to see. Doctors couldn't do this boy no good. All else had proven to fail. He had this last-ditch effort. He no doubt heard about Jesus being a wonder worker. He had no doubt heard that if you were hungry, Jesus was a man that could feed you. Maybe he heard about how Jesus served a banquet 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves. He fed them all till they were fed, including women and children. Maybe he got the scoop on Jesus showing up at that wedding in Cana of Galilee. And you remember they ran out of wine and Jesus turned water into wine. And not only wine, but the governor said, this wine is better than any wine I've ever tasted. I don't know what he heard. Maybe he heard from blind Bartimaeus who said, I ran him down the wayside one day and I said, Lord, that I might receive my sight. Oh, I don't know how much the disturbed father heard, but he heard something. And the Bible said that your faith comes by hearing. Yeah, you got to hear the word of God. And he had obviously learned about the whereabouts. He tracked him down. And he found a general location. When he got there, Jesus had already departed. He had taken temporary leave. He had some other business to tend to. Yeah, he went up in a mountain. Chapter 9, verse 1, you see him going up with Peter, James, and John. He shows up on Mount Transfiguration, and the Bible said that his garments began to shine bright as the light. And not only that, but we got special appearances from Elijah and Moses. So much so that Peter woke up out of his sleep and said, Lord, it's good. Didn't he say it to be here? And we need to set up 3 tabernacles. One for Elijah, one for Moses, and one for Jesus. But then it tells me a cloud overshadowed that mountain. And said, Peter, you're making a big mistake, buddy. Elijah is not on Jesus' level. Moses is not on Jesus' level. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Somebody read the story, and here they are coming down from this mountain. And the record is that the Father approached the other disciples who didn't go up on the mountain, and he brought his disturbed son to them, and they labored and they tried to deliver the boy, but their labor was in vain. Now, sometimes we're a little bit hard on these disciples because we talk about Jesus that gave them power, but here they are powerless disciples. Don't go around being a powerless disciple. But I have to give the brothers credit here because at least they tried. Some of y'all sit on y'all blessed assurance and don't do nothing. But at least they tried. And the record tells us that while they tried, the demon raised up in that boy. The boy fell back on the ground, waddling, foaming again at the mouth, and the crowd began to gather around, including those Pharisees. And they looked at the powerless of the disciples. They began to criticize and murmur, talk about, we heard a lot of talk about how you're able. We hear talk about miracles being wrought. And you mean to tell me you can't do nothing with this boy? And it looked like when things got bad, the worst Jesus makes his way down from the mountain. I say that good news because Sister Georgia, he knows just when to step in. Yeah, when it seems like all hope is gone, Jesus will show up just when I need him most. Yeah, he has the right to intrude at any time he he wants to. He can step in our affairs at any moment of any notice. He can be there quickly right now. He come down from the mountain. And some theologians suggest that there was still a little glow in his garments. And there was still a little radiance in his face. And when they came down from the mountain, the crowd backed up and allowed Jesus to come through. And this murmuring, criticizing Pharisees shut their mouths and stopped saying a word. Jesus came in and quiet as to the problem. And the record says, the Father said, Lord, I'm in a little trouble. Yeah, I brought my son, and I brought him to your disciples, and he gave the boy an A for effort because he tells Jesus they tried, but they just couldn't do it. They honestly tried, but they were not able to do it. And he says, obvious with the failure of the disciples that the Father didn't lose his faith in Jesus. Yeah, watch how you walk, watch how you talk, watch how you carry yourself, because you have the power, amen, to impress somebody. Somebody's looking for the Jesus in you. Father, now, he said, I brought him, and they could not do it. But if, watch me now, if you can do anything, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but I do know one thing. I brought him to your boys and they couldn't do nothing. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a demon too big for you to handle, but if you can do anything, have compassion on us. And I got to report to you that this if was displaced. It's in the wrong place. And that's not the only if in the Bible that's in the wrong place. I mean, there's some other ifs that's in the wrong place. What are you saying, Reverend? We remember when Jesus was taken to the wilderness, and he was there for 40 days and 40 nights, and this is after he was baptized by John in the River Jordan. You remember, come on, my Bible readers, after 40 days and 40 nights, the tempter came to him, and the record tells that the devil tried to, he put an if. He said, if you be the Son of God, command these stones be turned to bread. There was another if at Calvary. Yeah, you remember the two thieves that were on either side, and one of them had the nerve to say, if you be who you say you are, come down from this cross and save us. But I'm glad to tell you that there are some ifs that's in the right place. Well, yeah, I kept on digging, and I found a couple of ifs that's in the right place. I mean, if you go to 2 Chronicles chapter 7, somebody read it, you're going to find an if in the right place. Sister Robinson said, if my people, come on, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then shall I hear from heaven, and then will I hear their land. Somebody read that there's another if that's in the right place, and I get happy every time I read it. And it's in Psalm 124, it says, if it had not been, come on, y'all read that, for the Lord who was on my side, tell me where would I be? Can I tell you about one more if? Yeah, that's in the right place. Yeah, Sister Jackson, you remember there was a woman with an issue of blood, and she had bled 12 years, and she was in her house getting ready, and all she said, Sister Bridget, was, if I could just touch. That's the if that's in the right place. Yeah. She heard that he was in town. So Jesus said, well, let me watch him. Jesus said, okay, I got your request. I got it. Now, before he could do anything with the boy, he got to deal with the dad.